Hello and welcome to the Online Diversity Summit. I'm your host, Vijay Hari, and I have with me Pallavi Pareek. Pallavi is the founder of Ungender, and she specializes on gender diversity and inclusion at workplaces. Welcome to the summit, Pallavi. How are you doing?
Thank you so much, Vijay. Doing very well and very excited for the conversations that we are about to have. It seems to be a mutually, likable topic of subject, subject area that both you and I think all the people who will be listening to us will enjoy. So looking forward to it. Yes.
Lovely. So, we're going to be talking about unconscious bias at the workplace. So this is something that's getting really hot in India. So really look forward to hear from you on this particular topic, Pallavi.
Yes. I think, we are finally realizing and identifying that why all our initiatives towards the diversity, whichever kind of diversity that we want to have at workplaces, right? Even if it's for gender or for people with special abilities or the age diversity or cultural diversity, be it that we are strategically going towards it as a company, or it has been pushed to us because of the global nature of work that all of us are doing these days. Right, almost every other company is now dealing with foreign clientele and going abroad. Even in within the same country, India itself, we may have our head offices in one place, but then we have expanded our operations. So the diversity is bound to happen, right? But why it is not converting into inclusion is where the role of subconscious bias becomes so crucial. And that is the conversation that Indian workplaces and leaders, HR leaders, have now started realizing that just because we are diverse does not necessarily mean that we are inclusive also. There is something which is preventing it from happening. It's not our processes, it is not the intention, but it is the alignment which is being blocked at different stages. And that alignment blockage most of the time will result because of the subconscious bias.
Yeah. I think that's beautifully said. I think diversity, India being a diverse country, diversity happens naturally, but being included is what is the key factor, and that is what we will talk about today. Yes.
Mhm.
So we will start with a few case scenarios that very commonly organizations face. Okay.
Mhm.
So one of the questions that I often get asked is that uh, so I, as a manager, sales manager, I'm handling two critical resources in my team, and one of the members has just come back from maternity leave. She's a young mom. Okay,
Mhm.
and there was this opportunity to travel to Singapore to attend a 2-day conference,
Mhm.
and considering that the lady was a young mother, I nominated the other gentleman in my team because the lady will not be able to travel because she's still feeding her young child. So 2 days is going to be too much pressure. But the lady came back and she's pretty upset. So what did I do wrong? It's a very common question that some of the managers keep asking me. So how do you handle such situations, Pallavi?
This is actually one of the very softer aspects of what workplaces are dealing with right now, right? Because on one hand, we are teaching people to be empathetic, to be able to understand what the other person is going through and make the best decision, right? As a manager, as a leader. The second thing that we are not teaching or that we fail to communicate is to communicate, right? It's one thing for individuals to think that what is it that the best situation, the best solution for this situation will be, and take the decision from the high ground of the leadership or as an individual or as their manager. Similarly, in this case, what happened? I think the key ingredient that got missed out here is to communicate it with the affected individual. A 5-minute conversation to quickly, because see, it all started with an assumption, right? That, oh, she's a new mother. She may not want to travel, leaving the child on his or her own. She will definitely not be willing to do something like this, right? The career or that 2-day trip will not be more important than this. Now, everything happened in that leader's head on their own. It may be true, sorry, it may be a fact, not the truth. It may be a fact, it may not be a fact, right? The problem that happened here is not only that the assumption was made on their own, but also the affected party was not consulted here. So when we tell people that it's okay, see, Vijay, at the end of the day, we have started looking as biases as a negative trait, right? Biases are not negative. It's how we have started looking at them. Biases are nothing but this is like a library of what the judgments that we have made based on our experiences until now, right? Now the problem about biases is that when to exercise them and when not to exercise them, and how to exercise them. So if someone's life or their career is actually going to get affected based on the judgment that I have, based on the bias that I have, how can I not consult with that individual before acting or choosing to act upon it? And that's the missing ingredient in this scenario. This is a very common situation. It's not just about someone, being a new mother. It happens in other scenarios also, for something as simple as that, someone is going to get married, for example, right? If people in the company get to know, they will no longer assign them out of station trips or any important project which will require round the clock working requirement, because people will automatically assume that now she will need to focus somewhere else, because till the time this individual was single, she had control over her time, but now she is going to be answerable to somebody else. Neither the woman came and told these people this thing, but because this is how we have understood the society, this is how we have made other decisions in our own life, and it does not necessarily have to come from the opposite gender. We have seen it happening that the same gender actually decides what will be good and what will be appropriate for the juniors or for other similar genders members in the team. We have come across so many instances where the same senior female members have decided that, oh, now you're going to get married. So, of course, you would not want a traveling job. Don't you want to take care of the home more? So, this assumption is the bias, right? That what they chose to do or what they were required to do, they thought that this is the same system that is going to be carried forward, without bringing the affected party into a consultation mode. So communication is such an important key here. It's
Right.
it's it's so funny that this was not taught to us at home, and this was not taught to us in colleges. And now at workplace, we are actually educating people how to have clear communication, how to
Right.
not make decisions on your own.
Lovely. I think rightly said, by assuming you make an ass out of you and me. Assume.
Yes, that is true.
I think that is a very important key. And I think the tip that people should actually follow is, when will you ask a young father the same question, or will you assume the same thing with a young father? So why assume it with the young mother? Because the father too has equal responsibility with the child, right?
No, that is true. That is true. And Vijay, how it is backfiring is that when we are deciding for one gender, so let's look at it in the team format, right? If in a team of, let's say, 4 people, one is a woman, and now we are seeing that, okay, that person has just given birth, and I automatically chose some other male member from the team to go for that project. I did not even bother considering whether that person has the space in his personal life. Maybe that person's wife has given birth and he wants to stay in country only. He does not want to be away even for 2 days, right? So our bias for one gender, our assumptions that we have made for one gender, actually end up harming the other gender also, because the gender dynamics and the roles are changing so drastically. we know so many, we hear so many concerns when we do these sessions or these discussions around how the minute we are being overprotective towards one gender, because traditionally speaking and culturally speaking, if at night someone has to be dropped home, we will never think for a man that he may need to be dropped home also. We will always think that it's the woman, right? If we have a married woman working in the team, we are okay giving her the flexibility of taking the work home, or not coming on weekends or on Saturdays, but she can work from home. But we will not provide the same flexibility for the male members of the team, because we are automatically saying that you should be able to come. She has family duties for Saturdays, but you don't have, so you come, right? Now we are once again not incorporating the dynamics that are changing for each and every gender in today's time. We are automatically saying that yes, women needs more protection, we do not really need to care. But in the time that we are living in today, the roles have changed. And for all you know, a young father or a new father would want to actually be at home with his wife on her side and enjoy the time, same as a new mother also, right? So gender stereotype and the subconscious bias that we have is actually doing more damage, not just for the affected, not just for women, because most of our gender bias exists mainly for women, and we have been thinking that it affects and harms only them. It has been harming men also. It has been harming other genders as well. I mean, I will not go into the other gender category, because that's a different conversation altogether, right?
Right.
We don't even understand what that is right now.
Right. Lovely. I think that brings me to the next case scenario, which is on the LGBTQ. So this is another interesting scenario where multinational companies where they deploy their Indian team to go and work with the clients abroad. So in one such organization, this team of 5 members was actually sent to the client location. They successfully implemented the project. It was a 2 week long project. The client was super excited, super happy, and wanted to host a dinner when the team was going to go back to India. So during the dinner, the client had actually brought along her partner to attend the dinner. And while introducing her partner to this Indian team, one of the Indian team members found it pretty strange and funny that the person started giggling at the whole idea of the client living with a partner, right? So the client noticed this and was super offended with the entire scenario, and in fact filed a lawsuit, right? So this seems to be a very strong case scenario, and especially now in India with Section 377, which is gone,
Yeah.
something really organizations have to gear up. So your take on this in terms of LGBTQ?
I think it scares people, organizations. Um, Imagine that for the past 3 decades or so, India Inc. is trying to understand how to bring women in workplace, right? And they're still struggling, right? Vijay, you have been in the industry for so many years. I have seen enough, And individuals like us, we have been dealing with companies for such a long decades. And we know that they have not been able to figure out how to put two genders and get them to grow together, right? And be not only cordial with each other, but also to be able to understand how to communicate with each other, how to share a joke, how to give compliment, how to comment on work, and so on and so forth. All these softer aspects. And now suddenly we have, with the 377, we have this whole new world that has opened up, which they have no clue, because the language also it's very different, right? At least right now, whatever people are speaking with women, or the humor that goes around when we talk about men and women dynamics, at least there's a language that exists. At least this is still familiar. Yes, you may not know how to talk to a woman, but at least you have talked to a woman. Now what is happening with the whole LGBTQ is that in our society for generations, we have only observed from a distance. Either we have seen some samples of the community representation in movies, or we have seen them on the roads, and that is, and some stories from, mothers in our families, or some folk stories. The problem is that the world of LGBTQ is so unknown that organizations are very scared to open themselves and confidently claim that yes, you know, we are ready to be a gender neutral or a gender open organization. So we need to take baby steps here, right? We need to decode what exactly does it mean when we talk about any gender other than men and women. We need to tell them about the differences between gender and sexuality also, right? Because not everything is out there on your face also. It's easy to identify man, woman, and someone from the transgender community. But how easy it is for you to know if someone is queer? How easy it is for you to know if someone is gay, or in this case, someone had a lesbian partner, right? Now, these conversations, once again, never have happened, and we are dealing with corporate India, which has a age range of professionals from 22 to 50, 55, 60. Right now, most of these people have only been exposed. If it's a young audience, if it's a younger generation company, they have been exposed to having these conversations openly. But if it's a traditionally older generation kind of company, for them, they have never even had these conversations. So everything is needs to be driven in a very strategic manner. How you even introduce these conversations cannot be what you will do for a younger audience. You will need to frame these strategies differently also. So we start baby step. We started by actually decoding what exactly are the gender and sexuality spectrum that we need to understand. And then we introduce, I think we need to introduce that this is what it means to be part of either of the categories of LGBTQ spectrum that we are talking about. But that is not happening. We say that we are gender inclusive, right? Without even understanding the genders that we are talking about it. Similarly, the way we say that we are a very diverse, company, without even understanding which kind of diversity we are talking about. So I think our conversations are so ambiguous and vague in an umbrella manner, because when you say gender, if you're only talking about women, your conversations are also going to be about women only, right? So either you say that we are a woman diverse company, right? You can't say we are a gender diverse company, because you have not touched and included all these aspects either in your hiring strategy, or in your recruitment process, or in your performance appraisals, or in your cultural sensitivity, right? Even before I say that I am going to be having either such a large gender diverse group in my organization, or in the case scenario that you mentioned, that the minute I realize that my team is now going to be engaging in a global spectrum, right? It's not just the Indian scenario that I'm talking about, it's going to be a global spectrum. To identify that how the different global culture is and how my team can respond to it is also a very strategic as ingredient, which we fail to identify. So, where are our people going? Where is our team going to interact? Who are the people that they will be talking and having conversation with? What will they be exposed to? Can we prepare them for it? So at least for organizations, the best thing to do is that not only identify who are my people internally, right? That's the first step, to know that what kind of team I have, what are their biases, what are their preferences, what are the strong judgments that they are carrying around, but also to identify what will they be exposed to, so that these kind of incidents don't happen, right? If it's so simple. If you're sending your team member to Alaska and it's a very cold country, you will check with the person that whether that person can even handle cold and do business talk, right? And you will prepare that person for the temperature understanding, and you will prepare that person with the right kind of clothing. You will advise that person that wear these kind of clothes, don't carry cotton, and so on and so forth, right? So We will be doing all these discussions with those people. Why don't we do the same conversations when it comes to cultural sensitivity? Why don't we do the same discussions and preparation when it comes to the different kind of personalities that your team is going to meet? These are such softer elements that they only get highlighted in reactionary situations like this. The preparation, being preemptive and being proactive about it, is something that we strongly advise companies, and that's the only way it works. Otherwise, we can keep waiting for learnings to happen in the case scenario like that you mentioned.
Right. Lovely. So I think that brings me to another case scenario. You were also mentioning about generations, right? So there was this interesting scenario that one of the HR managers had brought up to me. This was automotive industry, which does research in their
Mhm.
field. Okay, so this is their research division, and there the senior managers who were experienced in the organization for 20 plus years, they were supposed to be interviewing the younger millennials who were passing out from IITs,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
they were looking at hiring, bringing in the young mind from the IITs to join their research wing. And the mindset of the managers was that, hey, I've been working in this organization 20 years, and this is the pay scale that I am at. And the young person who just passed out of IIT is also coming very close to my pay scale. So how is that fair? So the managers were not at all comfortable in hiring, and they were bringing out excuses like, "Hey, these millennials, they don't know how to respect the older generation. They don't
Hmm.
call us sir, because that is the culture that they've been brought up with, right?" So, what are your tips for organizations while interviewing, right? Because these are some of the aspects in terms of even gender or the biases that play during hiring itself. So, what would be your tips, Pallavi, for them?
See, the biggest mistake that organizations end up making is the failure of onboarding. Now, you may have the intention at the leadership level or at the strategic level that these are the kind of individuals or talent that we want to retain or hire in our company. And at the leadership side, yes, that is something that you may have identified. Now, what's the next step to assess is that, is this something that my team is also, my company is also open to? Or if they are not open to, then what is the reason that they will not be open to it? Right? Because like I said, being diverse does not mean being inclusive. I can bring 10 or 20 different kind of people in my organization, either by force or by saying that, okay, you just hire, right? By any means. But that may not necessarily mean that everyone will be able to coexist with each other. That's why we see a lot of frictions in team and we see attrition rates going high. So in this one, the first and foremost thing is when it is decided that we want to have this kind of diversity, in this case, generational diversity in the workplace, it will be so crucial to identify that are the people who are part of the process of not only bringing this talent in the organization, but also making sure that the talent is retained and it flourishes as per the that onboarding was required, you know because this will get communicated in your job descriptions, this will get communicated in your initial line of screening, this will get communicated in your pre-screening interview with the HR. For all you know, this may even after all these three levels are done, the main functional head is still not open to having a younger team, and that person may end up rejecting. And even if you force this team on under that kind of leadership, it will not flourish and there will be a lot of friction here. So first step, identify if there is going to be any rejection, which stages it is going to get rejected, and work on that first. So you need to work on that bias even before the talent has come in to make it a success story. Second thing that needs to be done is to make sure that you're able to observe how people are working together. See, Subconscious bias, Vijay, is not a game of 2 hour session that you sit with people and then you tell them that we got to know that you have this kind of bias and you need to work on it, right? It requires a period of duration for, interventions, discussions, conversations, for it to actually allow a person to say that I cannot get rid of it, but I can put it aside. No one can get rid of their biases. They will just learn how to put these aside and how to not to use them. So that hand holding needs to continue. So someone needs to keep observing that whatever observations, whatever realizations that we have imparted for this team, considering that they are going to have something new, a new element being introduced in their team, are they able to handle it? Are there slippages? So maybe someone can observe at the time of screening whether, even after being told that, hey, you have a subconscious bias against a younger mindset, and they have also realized that, yes, this is not healthy, this is not good, this is how we can make it work together. Even if there are any slippages, because at the end of the day, we are dealing with humans only, and allowing them room again and again to confront and resolve these situations. So observe. And third thing is, when the team has joined in, then make sure that there is some way of creating that dialogue where both teams are learning from each other. Because like you rightly pointed out, right? Someone who started their career 20 years ago started a very different pay grade and may now have just reached the pay grade wherein the new generation is just joining in, right? And also the attitude, the workplace attitude is not the same as seniority and a new person joining the industry. So then they need to know that there is something to learn from each other, because coexistence is the key to growing, not just as individuals, but the growth of the company. So it's the job. And in fact, this is one client, one company that I work with. They created this buddy system very beautifully, wherein every time a new person comes in and it is from a different generation, a younger person, they get assigned a buddy. And then at the first month itself, they actually create activity table for them, not pushing them into them, but suggesting it to them that if these are the kind of activities that you can engage in, and these will be the key takeaways. So people realize that there is so much to learn from the other, right? So instead of the hostility filter, you actually create a filter of learning and opportunity. And that's the way to address it. Sadly, that requires a lot of strategy, as you and I both know. It requires a lot of planning. And it's an intervention, but these are the systems for built to last companies and organizations, right? Everything that you want to last for long, everything that you want to institutionalize to make part of your culture requires this depth of work.
Right, lovely. I think understand where the problem lies and observe how you can go and fix it and take it forward and assess the success of it. Right? That's beautifully said.
Absolutely.
Yes, yes.
Keep auditing. I think we need to constantly keep auditing ourselves as an organization. That where are we doing right and where are the blockages. It's so important. It's just like a health checker for your body, right? When you do that, even if everything is going fine, you still want to know that what is it that I'm missing out on. And it's only when we identify the process where things are getting blocked, intervention becomes specific. But we don't do enough audits, either inclusion audits or gender safety audit or any kind of audit. We don't do enough audits. We don't look enough within in ourselves as an organization and say that I want to know where things can get blocked if tomorrow I want to do this, right? We take up
Right.
tasks as marathon. If tomorrow you want to run a full marathon, won't you go for a full body checkup first and assess that what areas of your health needs to be fixed before you even start training?
Right. Right. Lovely. I think lovely case scenarios that we have discussed, Pallavi, on gender, all forms of gender, generations. So, what would be your uh, closing uh, tips or best practices that organizations can follow to address unconscious bias?
The companies and the organizations that I have seen which have been able to address it, first and foremost, they are ready to admit that we are not there, right? Um, the key to tag it as a continuous improvement or as a never ending journey is the success ingredient, that you know that you need to constantly keep working on it, right? Second is to find for that alignment, right? Now a lot of times we say that everything starts from top and then only it will manifest. It's not true. Leadership may decide something and it may still not manifest, right? Some say everything happens if the HR wants to push for it, then it will happen. No, it's not alone in the hands of HR also, because they may keep coming up with different strategies, it may still not materialize. It is not one single individual's job or one single function's job or a top to bottom approach, right? Yes, it begins when one person realizes. It could be the HR, it could be your L&D, it could be your leadership. It could be an external person. In today's time, a posh consultant can go back to a company and say that, hey, this is something which is missing. So it could be anybody. The problem or the key is to now say that, okay, if this is where it is beginning from, how do we make sure that it is streamlined, right? We want to make it the backbone. Now for that, not only it's the human resource, it's also the processes, then it's the infrastructure, then it's into the culture, the conversations. It's one thing when we say that from now onwards we will have people from LGBTQ representation in our company. It's second thing to see if my organization is ready for it. It's third thing to see whether my processes and my documentation speak this inclusion also, right? And these are soft elements that you need to change. It's fourth thing to see whether I need an infrastructural change around it. I have come across so many companies who say that we are a gender neutral company, but when you ask them, what about your washrooms? Completely missed out. It's a blank thing for them. Because for them, it's like, why do we need something like that? Right? Or if you look at the kind of job descriptions and the terminologies that they are using, it's still hung up on the same stereotypes that exist between male and female only. So be exhaustive in that alignment, you know, because until and unless that exhaustiveness happen, that alignment is not going to be there. And third thing is to keep auditing, right? So even if it starts from wherever it started, right? Whoever initiated this, the kind of diversity that you want to bring. Because another mistake that companies make is that they approach all kind of diversity at the same time. Cannot be. You choose, you strategically identify what kind of diversity we want to bring in our organization, right? Is it female? Is it LGBTQ? Is it people with special abilities? Is it cultural? What kind of diversity do I want in my organization? Once you have identified it, then you create the streamlining of the leadership, process, policies, infrastructure, and culture.
Lovely.
And then you keep auditing whether it is manifesting also or not. Until unless that happens, I think it's an ambiguous game, because then everything is under diversity and inclusion, and most of us are anyway not reaching anywhere. That's why we see that we are not diverse, we are diverse-ish. It's a token representation that we end up looking at. And the conversation, even after 2 decades of diversity and inclusion being a practice introduced for workplaces, we have still not been able to decode what does it mean to be diverse, and yes, that it may not really mean that we are inclusive, right? So we need to be more specific in our approach.
Lovely. I think beautifully said. I think what I understand is that there are three A's to it. First is assess what you're lagging or what is it that you want to take your organization to. Assess
Yes.
and then align your processes, people, uh, all your
Policies, culture, everything else.
right.
Yes.
So
Fine.
assess, align, and then keep auditing. So these
Yes.
are the three A's that I would summarize from what you've said beautifully.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely. That is what it is. These three is. That's
lovely.
their
Uh, Thank you so much, Pallavi, for sharing your insights and experience on how to overcome unconscious bias. I'm sure the delegates are going to be benefited out of this.
Thank you so much, Vijay. This was actually, it's always good to repeat everything that we know just to reconfirm and realign our own thought process also. So thank you. This was indeed lovely.